Duncan Regehr here, inviting you to join me for my digital fan event on November 27th.
Feel better?
Much better. Quick, hurry.
Come on.
They're coming.
I'll be doing an online Q&A at 4 p.m. Eastern Time that streams live to Facebook and YouTube.
Joking.
Orders in preparation.
No. I don't have to.
I am in the direct line of descent from Raman. The choice is mine. I choose you.
I'd rather die first.
That can be arranged.
Following the Q&A, you can have a one-on-one video meet and greet on Zoom. You can also obtain autographs and recorded video greetings.
I presume, my dear Vector, that you have an explanation for this piece of junk.
It is a royal gift, sire.
A gift.
Not for you. It's a birthday gift for the Princess Ariel.
Are you playing games? Perhaps instead of a unicorn's head, I should send her your...
Hear me out.
For all information, please visit fullempirepromotions.com.
Darling, my apologies. I really was detained.
How dare you do this to me? You leave me all alone. You humiliate me. You treat me like a wife.
What the ancient Greeks wouldn't have given for you at the siege of Troy.
Don't make fun of me.
No, not the 28 shot elephant.
Thanks so much. I look forward to seeing you on November 27th. Should be fun.
Wake up, old friend. It is our time.
Life. It's like a box of chocolates.
Hi, I'm William B. Davis. I'm lead actor from the X-Files, also Continuum and Upload. I'm going to be doing a digital Q&A, some meet and greets, and some really good stuff coming up soon. So here comes the information.
It's not every day I get a research question on pagan idolatry.
Oh, well, call it a hobby.
But you said you were interested in local lore?
Mm-hmm.
I'm afraid Indiana isn't really known for its pagan worship.
I'll be doing the Q&A at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. It will stream live on both Facebook and YouTube, and hope you can have a look.
So you got murdered.
No, I was in a car accident.
Yeah, sure. You just threatened a $600 billion a year industry, and no one murdered you. Nobody murders anybody.
Following the Q&A, you can do a meet and greet right with me personally, and we'll have a chat, and it'd be good to see you.
You've killed men. You can kill a man, but you can't kill what he stands for. Not unless you first break his spirit. That's a beautiful thing to see.
Autographs and video greetings are also available. For all the information, look at fullempirepromotions.com.
You know, your sweetness would be a lot more convincing if we hadn't already met your predecessor.
Predecessor?
Oh, bravo! A performance of the first magnitude. Perhaps you really have duped your shipmates after all.
I look forward to seeing you on November 29th.
Cheap, thoughtless, perfunctory gift that nobody ever asks for. Unreturnable because all you get back is another box of chocolates. So you're stuck with this undefinable whipped mint crap that you mindlessly wolf down when there's nothing else left to eat. Sure, once in a while there's a peanut butter cup or a English toffee, but they're gone too fast and taste is fleeting. So you end up with nothing but broken bits filled with hardened jelly and teeth-shattering nuts. desperate enough to eat those, all you've got left is an empty box filled with useless brown paper wrappers.
Hey everybody, I'm Dominic Mancini. I'll be your host for this special Q&A with Duncan Regehr. We're live on Facebook and YouTube, so thanks so much to everyone who's watching us live. If you'd like to leave any questions or comments for Duncan, please feel free to do so, and we'll get to those during the broadcast. If you'd like your own private conversation with Duncan, following this Q&A, he'll be doing one-on-one video meet and greets on Zoom. You can have 5 minutes to chat with Duncan about whatever you'd like, and we'll even send you a recording of your meeting. In addition, you can get personally signed photographs as well as video recordings from Duncan on our website at fullempirepromotions.com. All sales for the one-on-one Zoom chats will end at about 5 p.m. Eastern Time. So if you're thinking about booking one of those, I'll probably advise you to do that within the hour. The autographs and video greetings will remain on sale until Monday, November 29th. Before I bring Duncan on, I do want to check out some of his career highlights with you, and then we'll bring him on. Check it out. One of the few people who gives me hair envy. Without further delay, let's bring on our man of the hour. You know him best as Zorro, Count Dracula from the Monster Squad, and Charles, the villain from the classic sci-fi series V. Other credits on screen and TV include Wizards and Warriors, The Last Days of Pompeii, Billy the Kid, The Banker, Star Trek, and playing Errol Flynn in My Wicked, Wicked Ways, The Legend of Errol Flynn. Is a long title for a movie. He's a talented artist, a classically trained actor, and a charming and charismatic gentleman, my friend and client. He won't be able to hear you, but let's make some noise for Duncan Regehr. Duncan, how are you?
Hey.
Yeah, you can't hear them, but I'm sure they're virtually clapping from all over the place. You got fans. You got fans everywhere.
Thank you.
So how you doing, Duncan? How's life?
Life is just the way it normally is. Haven't been particularly affected by COVID or anything because, I'm an artist and I work in my studio, so life is fairly solitary.
Right. Yeah. You just have to wrap a cloth over your face every time you leave, right?
Yeah.
Uh-huh. for us handsome guys, it's a little bit of a challenge.
Yeah, well, I'm used to covering up either the top part of my head or the bottom.
All right. Well, we have close to 100 people watching now. So, guys, let us know where you're watching from. Drop a comment. Let us know.
Yeah.
So let's chat about your roots a little bit, Duncan. You were born in Alberta, Canada. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Lethbridge, Alberta. Yeah.
Is that east of Calgary?
More south.
South. Okay.
Yeah.
So, what got you first interested in the arts? Were you a film fan growing up?
Not really. I mean, we didn't even have a television when I was a kid. So, the odd foray out to the movies was, it was rare. But, more interested in the arts because my father was a painter, amateur painter. And my mother always had an interest in literature and what have you. And she sort of instilled that in me as well. That's pretty much where it came from, reading old classical stories and then aspiring to be an actor and a painter, and from that. And I knew what I was going to do at a pretty early age, actually.
So what came first for you? Did the art come first, or was it theater?
Definitely, yeah.
Art?
Yeah, the art was there first. But I always had kind of an inkling that I would, go into acting. By the time I was 12, I knew that I would head in that direction as well.
Did you have any influences on screen or off screen that you watched that kind of made you say, "Hey, I think I want to do that," or was it just like an inner thing that you had to release?
It was more of an inner thing to begin with, and then sort of related to reading Shakespeare and poetry, and the theater was interesting to me. But I have to say, certainly the old classics, the old horror classics were a great deal of fun. I had a girlfriend that we would, get together every Friday night and wrap up and get on the couch and watch, Bela Lugosi and various others, and Peter Cushing, and, in the old movies. And they were inspirational for sure. But others were as well. I'm thinking of Man for All Seasons, Beckett, a lot of those pictures, Lion in Winter. They were very influential, more British oriented actors were inspirational.
Yeah, I'm guessing a lot of some of the stuff here you probably didn't see in Canada, but I mean, obviously different generation. But I grew up on Hitchcock. It was my thing growing up. I love Hitchcock.
Yeah, we had that too. Yeah, we had a lot of that too.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I've never had the honor of seeing you on screen, but I'm guessing you commanded the stage.
You mean on stage?
On stage, yes.
Yeah.
I'm guessing you commanded the stage. What are your fondest memories of theater? Are there any particular performances that stick out that you just find near and dear to your heart?
There's definitely a few, but I think more recently, I think it's about 20 years ago, I had the opportunity to play Abraham Lincoln, which was really a wonderful experience and interesting. And we did it in Santa Barbara at the Libero Theater, and that was a great experience. But also a lot of the Shakespeare classics were of interest to me as well. Great roles.
Right. What do you remember about your acting training? What was the one thing that kind of stuck with you throughout your career?
Well, I think I had this question the other day, and I think what was most influential was the actual practicality of being on stage and working with other professionals. Because I started when I was 16 and had my first professional job, and I was in a classical theater, Victoria Fair Company out of Victoria, British Columbia. And being around professionals, and most of them were from the United States, had come up to perform, these actors. And I just learned so much from them. I spent a little bit of time with the Bastien Theater School, but it became much more valuable to have practical training with real professionals. That was what was valuable.
Right.
Yeah.
Did you feel it was more gratifying performance-wise to do it on stage as far as on screen, because you see an instant reaction when you do it on stage?
Well, yeah. I mean, there's each medium has its benefits and its, sort of rewards, I guess, if you like. But that's not really the reason to do it in the first place. Not for me anyway. I was always interested in how do you create a role? How do you take it from the page and make it come to life? And, what is the theme of the piece that, that in some way can be brought to reality, or a false kind of reality on stage or on screen. That's always been what is interesting to me. The connection with the audience, on the other hand, is something else. That's quite magical. When you're two halves of an equation, and quite often, you say to other actors, if it's dead out there tonight, well, it's because half of the performance is really supported by the audience, and the actor is only part of it. And when the connection happens, that's when it's magical for everybody.
Right, for sure.
So it's very fulfilling. And I had a question the other day about this. How was it playing Zorro with that, and in relationship to him being a hero, and what is the nature of a hero, and how sacrifice is involved with that, and as a character, certainly Zorro, the character of Don Diego / Zorro, is a man that sacrificed his very being for the sake of the Los Angeles Pueblo. The people of the Pueblo were kind of like his audience. He had compassion for them, and the same thing applies to the stage. Having compassion for your audience, they sense it, and they'll
true.
go back.
Yeah, very true. Well, you've got you've got Art tuning in from Estonia. I believe he has a Zoom chat with you when we're done.
Okay.
People from everywhere that you're checking out.
Oh, cool.
Wow.
Great.
Netherlands, Germany.
Well, I'm happy to take the time to meet some of the folks.
Yeah, well, one of your early credits on TV included a series called Matt and Jenny, where you played the character of Kit alongside Megan Follows. Was this your first exposure to TV as like a main role?
The first television series, yes. I'd done other films, but it was the first TV series that I'd been involved with.
What difference did you notice from the production side, from film and TV? You recall from back then?
From back then, yeah, I think there were great differences up until a little while ago. Actually, there were big differences between TV and film, because let's face it. Now, television has really blossomed everywhere, all over the world. Yeah. There are just some fantastic programs out there now that have, in a way, taken over from going to the movie theater. We go to the movie theater to see the extravaganzas, the big, technically wonderful, and comics, and it's superheroes. That kind of thing really works well in the theater. The great big cinematic profiles are wonderful, but the intimate kind of dramas, I think television's pretty much taken that over.
I agree, and I think so. It's all about streaming now.
Yeah,
people watch.
Sure.
So, did you?
There was a bigger difference back then, as you were asking. Yeah, bigger difference between the two, and certainly, years in Hollywood doing different television series. You're on the clock, big time. So a lot of how things worked out, it's all timed out to, selling soap or whatever. And, that kind of guides the nature and the arc of the program, whatever it happens to be.
Yeah, I was always interested watching TV growing up, wondering how many scenes were cut out for the commercials. Now it's all streaming, so there's no commercials, but I always wondered,
right.
My favorite shows, I always wondered, how much stuff is cut out of this that, we'll probably never see.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So interesting. Well, Wizards and Warriors came in 1983. Sadly, it was only one season. Right. The series remains a cult favorite in your body of work.
Yeah.
You worked alongside Jeff Conway and Julia Duffy and Clive Revell.
Yeah.
Was this a fun role for you to play? And was this your first taste of playing like a main villain?
Well, it wasn't. Well, I mean, I'd obviously played villains on stage and what have you
Right.
prior to that. But yeah, first, yeah, television series in LA, and I had a ball. I had an absolute ball, especially working with Clive Revel, wonderful, wonderful character actor from New Zealand originally, and we just hit it off. It was just we had a wonderful chemistry between the two of us, and we had a great time.
What do you remember about the filming? And surprisingly, it was not filmed in England. They did a great job of making it look very European, but it was filmed. Was it all filmed on a soundstage?
A lot of it, yeah, and then we used the local environment just outside of Los Angeles for exteriors and what have you, which happens to look a lot like Spain. Not that we were supposed to be in Spain, but it is a fantasy. It was a fantasy as well, so you could take a lot of license with that. And yeah, I mean, I mean, a lot of the special effects had to be corny because that was part of the nature of the show as well. Right. Tongue in cheek.
Part of its charm.
Yeah.
Do you remember any talks about it going on for a second season, or was it written
forever?
Was it? Yeah.
It's a long time ago, but I'm trying to remember. I think CBS really wasn't sure what to do with that series. They didn't know where to put it. Harvey Shepard was head of CBS at the time, and he didn't understand the show, and so he didn't really put his support behind it. Everybody else liked it, but it was bopped around all over the place, and so it never really got an audience attached to it due to that, and it eventually perished.
Right. And unfortunately, it's pretty hard to find now. I was trying to find some clips to watch before preparing for this, and everything I found was grainy and blurry, and somebody needs to, whoever owns it, CBS still owns it, they need to clean it up and put it on Netflix or Amazon or somewhere, because people still seem to find it, as you say at the cons, right? People still mention it.
Yeah.
So, well, you turned in an impressive performance on the TV miniseries, The Last Days of Pompeii. You worked with an all-star cast of Ned Beatty, Olivia Hussey, Ernest Borgnine, Franco Nero, Laurence Olivier. I could go on and on and on.
I'm the only one left.
Well, Olivia Hussey's still around, I think.
Yay!
Franco Nero. I think he's still hanging
around. Franco is still around. Yeah.
But yeah, you're right though. A lot of them.
A
lot of them have checked out. Do you recall? Did you have a strict workout to prepare for this role?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
I can imagine.
It was back at the time though when it wasn't as popular with people to work out at all. I mean, to get buff and what have you. It was kind of a new thing. There was just a couple of us doing it, Arnold Schwarzenegger and me, and maybe a couple of other guys that were into that for the particular roles we were playing. And I just felt it was necessary for that role. And I insisted on having a gym go wherever we went in Italy and in England as well, Pinewood. And yeah, it was, necessary part of the job.
Right. So that took place in Italy and England. Pinewood Studios?
We started Pinewood Studios in England. We did some at De Laurentiis Studios in Italy, and a little place outside of Rome called Civitavecchia. And yeah.
Wow. Pinewood Studios, that's the one that burned down.
Pompeii itself. We shot in Pompeii itself. What am I saying? We used the old Colosseum in Pompeii as the Colosseum for the gladiatorial scenes.
Wow. Stuff you can't build a set, to look that authentic, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Pinewood, that's a studio that burned down, isn't it?
That's right. Shortly after, we were there, it did. I think it was during a 007 movie or something. Yeah.
Wow. What did you guys do?
Well.
Somebody left a curling iron plugged in or something?
Yeah, or they blew up the volcano. The Vesuvius blew up the whole studio.
Yeah. Well, this was a very physical part for you. Did you typically do your own stunts, or did you utilize your stunt guy most of the time?
No, I think I pretty much did them all myself in The Last Days of Pompeii. I certainly did, 90% of them in Zorro, although I had a fantastic stunt double in Zorro, a guy named Ignacio Carrera, and he was amazing. He could do some wonderful things because it was a really full schedule. I of course, did all the fight scenes, all the sword work had to be mine because it was a particular style that I developed and all that, and kind of hard to imitate it. But everything else, pretty much all the riding and difficult things, I did a lot of difficult things with it. But he was there for sure. He did some fantastic stunts for me.
Yeah. Do you have any memories offset from Pompeii with that veteran cast we mentioned? Any kind of fun stories or memories linked to it with anyone?
I just remember, walking along in Pinewood, and actually, I can't tell you the dirty stories, can I? Yeah, but I remember walking along the lane in Pinewood towards the sound studio where I was supposed to do a scene, and I could hear this voice going right through the walls of the sound studio. And the whole point of the sound studio is that it contains the sound. And I thought, it was Laurence Olivier's voice. You couldn't hear anybody else, but you could hear him. He had one of those types of voices that it just carried. Amazing, fantastic actor. And at that time, he was suffering from some form of cancer, and he had all the tubes in different places and what have you. And he carried on. It was absolutely wonderful. Wonderful guy to work with.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, of course, we have to talk about My Wicked, Wicked Ways. How were you approached to play the role of Errol Flynn?
Well, I was doing Pompeii at the time that I was approached to do that particular picture. And I literally finished one, and 2 weeks later, I was supposed to start Flynn, and My Wicked, Wicked Ways. And it wasn't very much time to do a study for the character. So I certainly looked at the script pretty hard, and I watched a lot of his old films just to get a sense of just an essence of him, which is all I could ever do. I wasn't going to be able to do an imitation of him, which I felt would have been a big mistake anyway. But Gentleman Jim, his old film about boxing, was really informative to me. Kind of gave me an angle on how he moved, spoke. It was just very valuable.
Right.
And that's really kind of where I started with it.
Do you remember did you hear if there were any other actors up for the role?
I didn't. Oh, wait a minute. I think there was one other, and I'm trying to remember his name now. It's Kevin Kline, I think, was up for it.
Oh, okay.
But there was talk about others, other people. I think Tom Selleck and all these other names that would never really do this role. They come up with those names, but whether it's true or not, I don't know.
Yeah, I can't picture Tom Selleck.
I could certainly picture Kevin Kline doing it.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. But they went with a great choice. So the film was directed by a wonderful filmmaker, Don Taylor.
Yeah, good with Don.
Yeah. He directed Island of Dr. Moreau and The Final Countdown and tons of TV work.
Yeah.
Would you say he was an actor's director?
Yes, I would. Definitely. Yeah, Don was real old school. He was wonderful from the old Hollywood, when they did everybody was a big drinker and a smoker and stuff. And of course, at the time he was working with me, he had to let all that stuff go. But yeah, he had great stories. He hung out with, Robert Mitchum and, James Bacon, that was around at that time as a journalist who, did a lot of interviews with Errol Flynn and was indeed a good drinking buddy of his. And he was great for, a lot of information of what was true and what wasn't true about Flynn.
Yeah, he was a great director. I've seen a lot of his work.
Yeah, no, he was wonderful. I loved Don.
Yeah. Well, your leading co-star in the film was Barbara Hershey. Who's also a fellow client and dear friend of mine.
Yeah.
Did you audition with Barbara, or did you guys get cast around the same time? Or
no, I think Barbara came after my casting. I'm sure of that. Yeah. but wonderful choice, of course, as Lily Damita.
Yeah. You guys had such great chemistry on screen that I it seemed like you may have auditioned together.
Oh yeah, we did more than audition together. Yeah, we had a good time. We danced well together, I think.
Yeah, surprisingly, because I think she's only like what 5'4", maybe 5'5".
Yeah, about that. But,
yeah. Her accent was pretty good in it, I thought.
Yeah.
Any special memories from Errol Flynn off screen, or any instances where you kind of look back and you think, man, I wish I could change that. Errol Flynn wouldn't have done that.
I'm the only thing I would say that I wish they could have investigated more was the trial, the actual trial. It was difficult to do, just as to compact everything, his entire life, into a short thing and still have it come out with a sort of semi-positive ending. But the end of Flynn's life was terribly tragic. I mean, he was ill with everything, and the real. Sorry about
that. First you burn Pinewood Studios down, now you're burning your own studio down.
Well, that's good timing. It's
Is it a test? Alarm. Oh, geez. Well, we can wait a minute. If it doesn't go off, we'll come back to this.
Yeah. Well, maybe we should leave it, Dom.
All righty.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll come back, I promise.
Yeah, come on back. We don't want you to burn down.
No.
I'll see you in the screen below, and whenever you come back.
Okay.
And I'll bring you back in.
Okay, mate.
All right. Well, that is a first. During a live Q&A, we have a fire alarm. Well, never had that happen before. Wow. Jesus. Well, we'll hang out for a few minutes and see. Hopefully, it's just a test or something they do, and he'll come back. Interesting. So yeah, thanks so much everybody who's watching. You guys, I'm seeing people from everywhere. I know some of you guys have your Zoom chats coming up. So if you have any questions about that, I can answer those now. We've got some downtime, and we may push that back a little bit. The Zooms are supposed to start at 5 p.m. Eastern, but we may push that back a little bit because we're going to finish the Q&A, hopefully, if all is well there in Duncan's studio. We may delay this and start the one-on-ones later. Let's see here. Yeah, Jamie. I hope it's a false alarm as well. Could be just a test that they're doing. Test them out. Yeah, sure. You can ask whatever questions you want. Just type them in below, and I'll bring them on screen for Duncan to ask. Whatever you guys want to talk about. I have some questions here, but you guys feel free. Whatever you want to ask them. 5 minutes is too few. Well, 5 minutes do go by quick. So have your questions ready. Oh, yes, of course. The one-on-ones, yeah. That's not just a staring contest for 5 minutes. You guys can talk about whatever you want. Yeah, of course. And those get recorded as well. We'll email that to you within 48 hours. Okay, we'll ask him that when he comes back. Hopefully his art studio is not burning down there. Still looks good in the preview down there for me. No fire yet. Yeah. We don't know. So far, it seems okay. I'm going to keep it going for a little bit. Hopefully, he'll be back. We'll keep an eye on it. Haven't seen any text or anything from Duncan yet, so let me check real quick. Make sure he didn't text me. No, nothing yet. So we shall hang in there and see. Hey, Alicia, how are you? How did I meet Duncan? Yeah, I met Duncan. When was it? 2009, I believe. No, 2007. I met him at his first convention, which was in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. His manager of his art studio had booked him in it, and we met there. I was just attending it as a fan, and we met and kind of hit it off and exchanged info. And then when I started my business in 2008, I still had his information. I called him and asked him if he wanted to do more events, and we kind of hit it off, and been friends since then. You know, we've had a lot of fun adventures. But Alicia, you're probably talking about the Western Fest that we did, which was one of the most awkward conventions I've ever been to. You know, the old Western Fest. You know, everybody there was like 70, 80 years old, and it was quite interesting. You know, it was about old Western films and old Western TV shows. But I made a lot of new friends there, including you, Alicia. So it was a good thing for us. It looks like Duncan is back with us. Let's see. Let's check in with him here. Nothing burned down there?
Nothing burned down. False alarm.
Okay, that's what we were hoping for. Jeez. Well, that is the first thing. I've never had that happen before.
Yeah, really.
I mean, if you didn't want to talk to me, you could have just said something. You know, the whole fake false alarm thing. You know, it's like very creative, though.
Yeah.
All right. So
anyway, you asked me a question, and I can't remember what it was before my ears were blasted out.
I think we'd answered it. I think we'd talked about Errol Flynn and what you would have done differently, and you were talking about how they kind of compacted it in, and didn't give the story enough space to kind of tell the full story.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, no, but I know what I was going to tell you was at the time that Flynn died, he was in Vancouver, and he was there with his boat, the Zorro, and the guy that did the autopsy on his body was a doctor that was actually working with my younger sister, who was a nurse at the time.
Wow.
And at the time, I was actually doing Errol Flynn.
That's pretty trippy.
It was pretty trippy, all right. Yeah.
Wow. It's like he was haunting you.
He was haunting me. It was like, but it was like, you know, the interesting thing was he died of practically every disease known to man. When they cut him open, he said he was more like a 90-year-old inside than a 50-year-old. He was really shot. Amazing that he was even walking around at the end.
Yeah. My gosh. Yeah. You know, that seems like a good thing to reboot. You know, if they did like a Netflix Errol Flynn series.
Sure.
You know, updated it and told kind of more in detail.
Yeah. Story.
But wow. Well, I guess we should move on to V. You played the arch villain Charles.
Yeah.
And 4 or 5 episodes, but he remains one of the most memorable villains. Did you enjoy playing this part? And did they ever talk about bringing you back or extending the role a little bit? I mean, I know you were poisoned, but yeah, they could have.
Yeah, I was poisoned. I was poisoned at my request, actually. Yeah,
set the fire alarm off.
I had another job, so to go to. So I was it was sort of pre-understood that if this job came about, that I would be moving on to it, and that's what happened.
Wow! So they actually had more material written for the character.
Oh, I don't know about that. I mean, I you know, the writers get up to whatever they do, and it shows up when it does. You know.
Right.
But again, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, most of your scenes
fantastic.
Yeah, I was going to mention her. I know most of your scenes were with her. You know, she'd been kind of established as the main villain on the series.
Yeah.
Did she give you any kind of tips or anything before you came on about how the villains act on that series, or did you just kind of stick to the script? And
no, I just kind of did my own thing with it, and just, you know, it worked quite well with whatever you know her thing. We had a good chemistry, I think.
I believe so.
And she's a lovely woman. I mean, she's really a really great sport, great gal to work with, and we became, you know, friends from that. And yeah, it was good. It was a good time.
Yeah, I met her for the first time last year at a convention.
Yeah,
and she was great. She was,
Yeah.
well, I connected you guys. That was funny.
Exactly.
Yeah.
After all those years, she was so sweet.
Yeah.
Wonderful gal. Yeah.
Yeah. What do you remember about some of the other actors on V? Did you have much time to interact with Michael Ironside or Mark Singer? Any of the other?
Sure, certainly with Mark, and because we had to do some fight scenes together and stuff, and a real gentleman, a really nice guy to work with. And Mike Ironside and I go way back to Canada.
He's so great. He's one of my favorites.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. We chummed around a little bit in Toronto many, many years ago. Yeah, I had a great time.
Right. And they never inquired about casting you on the V reboot that came out many years later?
No, nothing like that. No, that didn't come up.
Yeah, I was kind of disappointed in that series because they didn't, I understand they were trying to do their own thing, but they didn't give any kind of nod to the original. They didn't really bring I don't think any of the original cast back.
Jane came back. Jane was involved,
yeah,
I believe. Yeah.
Yeah. I was hoping they'd cycle in some of the prior recurring, characters from it. But I digress. Well, of course, we have to talk about Monster Squad in 1987. You played Count Dracula, one of the most classic horror villains of all time. Do you recall the audition process for this?
Yeah, it was extensive. And it was a lot of it was a matter of trying to convey how I wanted to play the role. And I think there was, certainly Fred Decker had some preconceived ideas about how to approach the monsters in Monster Squad. And my point of view was certainly that, yes, Dracula is a monster, but he's a human monster. He's not, something, like Frankenstein's monster or the Mummy, or there were no bestial qualities about him like the Wolfman. There was much more psychology, and he was certainly more psychopathic and deeper than you could see that in the way the characters were played out. But he is a classic sort of horror film from Universal character.
Yeah.
But that's what I tried to convey to Fred, and he eventually got on board with it, was that I wanted to bring out the more diabolical human aspects of the Dracula that I wanted to play, but at the same time retain the iconic aspects of him that was been presented by Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing and other people, Bela Lugosi, for example, and retain all of that, and then put in this sort of sociopathic, manipulative, absolutely diabolically dangerous human being with a sense of humor.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a big Dracula fan, and I've seen almost every Dracula on screen, and yours is incredibly unique in that you, as you said, you give him a lot of human qualities, and he's almost like a serial killer, who just happens to drink blood. And you added just enough humor to make him very likable,
to make it palatable in a way.
Yeah. No, I thought you did a great performance on that. It was one of my favorite Draculas for sure.
Well, I certainly had a lot of help. I mean, when you think of, the great late Stan Winston with his makeup and special effects way ahead of their time, were they're quite brilliant.
Right. Although I was kind of bummed that you never got to attack anybody on screen. Never showed you biting anybody's neck.
Well, one of my favorite scenes is Dracula going along throwing the cops in all different directions.
That was, yeah. My favorite scene is where you're talking to Frankenstein inside the cave.
Yeah, I like that.
And it just dead eyes, if they don't comply, kill them. And that kind of made you realize, wow, well, this guy's not, he's not camp at all. He's not messing around.
No, yeah, he's a killer. Yeah.
Right.
Sure.
Well, I understand you had mentioned Fred Decker. I understand you had several disagreements with Fred.
Yeah, we're good friends now, but I found a lot of it so frustrating, and a lot of it was my own orneriness too. At the time, I was probably I'd lost a lot of weight for the role, a little bit probably hypoglycemic every day that I came in, wanting something to eat or drink, as the case may be. And Yeah, no, we just differed in the approach to the character, and I think he really was going for more of the visual, sort of teeth and bestial effects that you can get for a particular scene. And of course, my interest was the role. How do we flesh him out and give him depth, layers that keep him interesting as a human? Because otherwise, you've got all the monsters basically having the same approach, apart from maybe the character of Frankie, played by Tom Noonan, wonderfully played, very tender and wonderful with the kids and all of that. But you had to have these other layers in there to make it work. And if he's the leader of the monsters, then he's got to have his fingers in all the pies, for sure.
Yes, for sure.
And
I think,
I kept pushing that with him all the time. And certainly Peter Hyams was on board with that as the executive producer. And Shane Black. Shane Black was writing these fabulous lines all the time. Give me the amulet, you bitch, and meeting adjourned, and all those.
Well, classic.
Yeah.
But did you improvise any lines, do you recall? Or was it all just stick to the script?
You probably didn't want to hear the lines I improvised for it.
Nothing exciting, or
no, nothing too exciting. I think I threw a hammer at Fred at one point. I don't think I know. Yeah.
Well, maybe he wasn't drinking enough. You wanted him to get hammered.
Yeah. Oh, good one, Dom.
I think you had a great approach to the character, because it's easy to make him beastly and scary. I think when you have little subtle hints of that, it makes him more scary, because you don't know when he's going to strike.
That's right. That's right. And it also gives people something to relate to in the character that they can get close to. And then, of course, he's going to turn on you, and he'll bring forth something that doesn't happen inside every human being. And that would be one of his sociopathic qualities, totally without compassion or, conscience of any kind.
For sure.
Yeah.
Did you stay in character around the kid actors?
I didn't really have much to do with them on purpose. And it was something that we talked about in the meetings and what have you, was keeping separate from the kids. And I think that helped them, to make that leap, that everything was quite magical in a way, and that
Jeez. What is going on there?
I think that was a test of my nerves. Oh.
There's no fire, guys. Come on. All right, we'll give it a minute. Hopefully we're good now.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we were talking about the kids.
Anybody.
Yeah. I forget. Oh, yeah, we were talking about how you stayed away from the kids. There wasn't many scenes with you and the kids.
And that sort of, made them more fearful about me, because it was mysterious. Who were these people? I think Tom Noonan stayed in makeup until all the kids were gone from the set, and before he changed into being Tom, which was great. I didn't have all the applications he had. I just, it was basically myself with white makeup on.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I always felt like the score to the film added so much prestige. Do you remember seeing the film completed for the first time, and what your thoughts were on the score and the reaction, if there was a live audience?
No.
Okay.
I can't even remember where did we see that screening? Was it the Chinese Man or someplace like that?
Yeah, I know there are photos online of Schwarzenegger was at the premiere. There's a photo of him with all the monsters.
Well, maybe it was. Where were we? Okay. It was at Hard Rock Cafe.
Yeah, because there are photos of it.
That's right.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, the film sort of flopped at the box office.
Yep.
I believe the budget was like 12 million, and it made 4 million worldwide, something along those lines.
Yeah.
Why do you think it flopped? What were your thoughts on it?
Well, I think a couple of things. I think the timing was bad because it came right out opposite Lost Boys. So that my nemesis.
Yeah.
There's that, and then what was I going to say? The other reason I think was because it got bumped up to the next age category that they had at those times for viewing.
Somebody needs to take the battery out of that thing.
It won't make a difference.
All right.
Okay. Sorry to interrupt, but yeah. What was I saying? I think the other thing was, bumped up into a different age category, due basically to my line, "Give me the amulet, you bitch." I think that was the thing that crossed over the border. He called a little 6-year-old girl a bitch, and they didn't want to take the line out. It was too good.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I mean, it's certainly one of the iconic lines of the whole movie. The other one being,
right,
Wolfman's got nards, rather.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's, and it kind of established Dracula's character, that Give Me the Amulet scene. That kind of showed you that, that's the first time we really see his fangs, too. Aside from when he gets stabbed.
Yeah.
After that. Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think it was in the marketing. I think people didn't know whether it was okay to take their 6-year-old or their 12-year-old, or they really didn't know if it was a horror film or a kid's film. I don't think it was marketed well enough to establish that. But it did come back strong throughout the 80s and or throughout the 90s and current. There's a huge cult following for the film. So
yeah, and I think Andre Gower's new documentary, Wolfman's Got Nards, has certainly helped to promote it a great deal more. It is a cult film, has been a cult film, and that's his documentary certainly perpetuates that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, we have to talk about Billy the Kid. You worked on that with Val Kilmer and my old buddy Wilford Brimley.
Yeah, Wilford, bless him.
Yeah. Were you a fan of Westerns, or was this something you had pursued?
I was a fan of horses, more than actual Westerns. But yeah, sure, I loved Westerns. Any kid did.
Yeah, and a lot of actors that I talked to who had never been in a Western always say that's their goal. I just want to be in a Western, and I never really understood it. But I guess the genre is kind of dead now. But
it is kind of dead, and it's probably the Old West was not as charming as they lay it out to be, because it was a tough time and there were a lot of criminals running around, and it was a frontier atmosphere. The law was not really established.
Right.
And maybe that's what makes it attractive to people. I don't know. The kind of anarchy existed in America at that time.
Right. Right. Did you do much research on the true events? The true
true events. I mean, it's all apocryphal now for sure. The true events were so questionable. I just played what Gore Vidal had written as in the script as being, that would have to be the gospel truth for me. I did have a lot of, I suppose, argument with Val, about the nature of the characters we were playing. Billy the Kid was, certainly legendary, but more notorious than anything else. He certainly wasn't an American hero. So there's an argument about what is a hero. And to my mind, both Billy the Kid and my character, both were, Pat Garrett, were both pretty sociopathic. I think they were killers. And, heroes, not so much.
Also, they were sort of anti-heroes in a way.
Anti-heroes, but they killed a lot of innocent people. Let's face it. Just to kill them.
Right.
And
Yeah, well, I know everybody who worked for Wilford always has a good some kind of story about him.
Oh,
he was such a character.
He was great. He was such a wonderful guy. I watched him one day. He cured this girl of smoking by taking her cigarettes away and he talked to her, and he literally took her habit away from her. And Wilford always had a way of telling a story, and his integrity, his honesty would always come through almost hypnotically. I mean, you knew him too. He could do that. He could tell a story or give you a poem or whatever. And he had a fantastic memory. And working with this girl, and the girl never went back to cigarettes again. He took her habit away from her.
He probably put 20 years onto her life.
Yeah.
Wow.
He was a great guy.
Yeah, he if you looked at him, you never would think he was an actor. Then as soon as the camera started, he was just a natural.
Yeah, natural, absolutely natural.
Right. And one of his first, I think his first role was playing one of the only ape at Planet of the Apes that was on the horse. He actually trained all the other apes, stunt apes, how to ride the horses. He had an interesting story,
Yeah.
But you're right, though. He did have that way of persuading you without saying much. And we miss him. He was a great guy. So, of course, we have to mention in 1990 you played the character that most of your fans know you most from, and that's the role of Zorro and Don Diego. Did you feel it was a challenge to play two different characters?
Well, it was a challenge, and one that I was, really quite ready to take on, obviously. And it meant a huge workload, which I also thrive on. I just love to work all the time. Standing around and waiting I'm not really good with that. But certainly, playing both parts and trying to find the way to do it. I mean, in the beginning, there was some question about how to play it. And I had, of course, my own ideas, like I did with Monster Squad, presenting my ideas of how to portray the Don Diego character. Because traditionally he's portrayed as what they call a fop, a sort of a useless man, basically, that's, very trivial and not very interesting. And that was, sort of an act as well. And that's the really interesting thing about the Zorro Don Diego characters. Who is the real Don Diego Zorro? Because those are both put-ons. Don Diego is, whether he's played as a fop or whether he's played the way I did, which was more as a scientist than anything else. But he was, very much a man around the house. He just wasn't particularly violent or a fighter in any way. He could fight, but he was suppressing all of that and pretending to be the Don Diego character. So you had this man who's pretending to be Don Diego and pretending to be his alter ego, Zorro. That's 3 characters, not 2.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
He did so much pretending he could have been a politician.
Yeah. And then yeah. But yeah, it presented a lot of challenges. And I remember, my suggestions to begin with were, I'd like to play him more like a Ben Franklin type of guy. Zorro always has the black hair and the dyed mustache. I had all of that going. But I said, we could do him with long blonde hair. And we did, he could stick the mustache on and he could be sort of walking around with Ben Franklin pince-nez glasses on and pottering around his chemistry set and that kind of thing. And no, we're not going to be doing that. If you want to do that, you're not going to be playing this part, was what I was told. So I had to come up with something else. And he said, well, we'd like him to be a bit more like Guy Williams, the Walt Disney Zorro. So there wasn't a lot of difference between the 2 characters. There were differences, but not a lot.
Right. They always go back to what they know, what they're established.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But it still worked. I mean, there are tremendous leaps of faith that had to be taken with, a Los Angeles Pueblo being filled with tiny little people all over the place. And there's one 6'5" guy by the name of Don Diego, and nobody knows who Zorro is. They couldn't possibly guess, when Zorro shows up. Oh, gee, he's 6'5" too, and nobody else
Right.
else that height, right?
Yeah, we never see them together.
Never see them together, and but nobody made the connection. It's that leap of faith that we take. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, my friend Bob is asking. I think you had answered this. He's asking which movies of Errol Flynn did you study before portraying him? That was his boxing, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gentleman Jim. Yeah.
Cool. Lucinda is asking, did you collaborate on Zorro's script? I guess, did you write any of the scripts or have any input on the scripts?
No, I didn't, although I was very good friends with Philip Taylor and Bob McCullough, who wrote them. And, we would talk about things, of course, but they were wonderful. Those guys they're actually amazing when you think about it, being able to tell a story within not 30 minutes, 22 and a half minutes, because they always have to make allowance for commercials. But these guys would put a story together with a beginning, a middle, and an end, with crowd scenes and fight scenes and, a lot of rhetorical sort of narrative, expositional narrative involved in it, because you've got to progress the story as quickly as you can. But they did it. It's just extraordinary to me that they could do it one after the other.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the series was filmed in Spain. Do you believe that helped you get into character? And do you believe that Spain was a benefit to the series?
Actually, yes. I never really thought about it like that, but looking back on it now, yes, it was valuable because we were the crew and much of the cast were Spanish and English people, and we had to sort of do interpretations all the time to get through the day.
Right.
But it was valuable because it had the feeling, very Spanish feeling to it.
Yeah, set the tone, put you in the mood
as it would have, I believe. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah. Never been there, but I can imagine it's great place.
Yeah.
Well, the show had many great guest stars, including Damian Thomas, Andre the Giant, Adam West, Daniel Craig, many others. Yes. Were there any guest stars that you remember connecting with that you had hoped would come back to do more episodes?
Jim Carter, I really, really enjoyed working with him, and he does. Yeah, everybody knows Jim Carter.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed working with him, and I was always, wanting him to come back and do another episode and what have you, and the same with everybody else. I guess Andre the Giant was kind of a one-time gig, but I mean, amazing individual.
I'm sure.
Lovely guy. I remember shaking his hand, and I'm a pretty big guy, but my hand disappeared inside his mitt, his enormous hand. It just vanished.
Yeah.
I felt like a 3-year-old shaking hands.
I can imagine. His nostrils and his toes had separate zip codes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Francie is asking, did you love playing Zorro?
Yes, I love playing Zorro. Absolutely loved playing Zorro. It was great fun. Yeah. Playtime.
Yeah, we have to mention, we mentioned the guest stars. We have to mention the series regulars, some of the people you worked with, James Victor, Patrice Martinez, Henry Darrow. Any connection or long-lasting friendships with those?
Well,
with that group?
Certainly with Henry. We were pretty good comrades throughout the whole thing, wonderful friends. And Ephraim Zimbalist Jr., who preceded him, was also a very good friend. And John Hertzler. We ended up being good friends and enjoying each other's time together and working together. For sure. Those guys. Yeah.
Yeah. How important do you think it is for being on a series like that for the main actor to set an example for the cast?
It is. I mean, it is a bar that you have to set in terms of, particularly on a really difficult schedule and what have you. You're at the helm of this thing, so you do have a big responsibility in that way. It wouldn't work if just wouldn't happen if you didn't sort of take that mantle on. It would never happen. they'd have to find somebody else who could take the mantle.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I agree.
Yeah.
Well, do they ever talk about doing a movie version with your Zorro?
No.
Never.
I mean, maybe it was talked about, but not to me.
Right.
I mean, I'm sure they talk about a lot of different ideas, radio plays, etc. And I'm sure there's always movie ideas. And I guess the Antonio Banderas film came out after our television series, and which was quite wonderful too.
Yeah, it was. He's a good actor.
Yeah.
We've got kind of a long one here from Finland.
The Sword. I have it.
Very cool.
I was presented with the Sword at the end when we finished filming. Peter Diamond, wonderful late Peter Diamond, who is the best sword master within the world, I would think. As a film sword master, he was brilliant. And he presented me with what we called the close-up sword, because it was the pretty one that
Right.
the shiny blade, and it's good for close-ups. Not
The hero.
Yeah, the hero sword. There were several others that were the working swords, which got battered and beaten up, and I don't know who got those. They disappeared.
Right. Well, you need to polish it up and use it on whoever's setting that fire alarm off.
With pleasure.
Well,
we're exciting. What can I say?
Right. Intermission.
Yeah.
Well, we are creeping over an hour here, but I do have to mention a film that I enjoyed you in that isn't really talked about much, called The Banker. You played another juicy villain in this. You get a great wardrobe, a cool car, and a badass bow and arrow. Was this part enjoyable for you?
Well, yeah, there I am playing another sociopath, right? And it was an interesting role again, to try and develop some sort of backstory for this guy, because when they originally gave me the script, I said, well, he's just a guy going around killing women, sleeping with them, and then killing them. And I said, well, why? I want to know why. So I said, we've got to come up with some backstory. And they said, why? Why do we have to do that? I said, because I'm not happy with this.
Then there's no reason for the
doesn't make
film,
any
right?
sense to me.
Yeah.
So we talked about it, and I came up with wrote a bunch of things down and said, what about, if he was, orphaned, and his parents were missionaries in South America somewhere, and they were in the bush, and he was brought up by the people of the land after his parents disappeared, and they introduced him to their rituals of torture and murder and all of that kind of stuff. So it was instilled into this character from the very, very beginning that this this bloodletting aspect would be what he would carry forth as an adult. And when he was brought back to America and educated and what have you, he became a very successful banker, but always reverted back to his roots, I guess, in a way, his killing roots.
Yeah, that's great. I never realized that was your input, because it really does make the whole character and the whole story flow.
Yeah, no, and I'm telling you, it's it's one of those things, again, with a lot of arguments about it, and I'm saying, trust me that you've got to do this. It'll just enrich. You can make the movie every time, or whether it's that one or whether it's Monster Squad, or you can go in with these, it's great to have the gnashing teeth and the all of these great special effects and what have you. But if you don't underscore it with some depth and reasoning that people can follow and something they can relate to, it's never going to work. It's just going to be stupid.
Humanity. Yeah, some kind of humanity. Yeah, no, it's a great film. Unfortunately, The Banker returned low interest and doesn't get talked about as much as it should.
No, I guess not. No.
Do you think the title hurt the success of the film? I always thought the title kind of, pushed it away from what it really was. Like, it didn't, you would think it was a Wall Street movie.
If it was released today on Netflix, I think it would work. The Banker, updated and everything, of course, but redone as The Banker, called The Banker, people would cotton to it quite well today. But back then, it would have to have been some other flashy title to attract people to it, I think.
Yeah, I agree with the way they made it and the PTSD the character had. It was way ahead of its time.
Yeah,
that aspect. Well, if anybody's interested in checking out The Banker, there is a really good Blu-ray available. They cleaned it up and redid the audio, and it looks and sounds great. So you can check that out. Well, we're running out of time here, but I do want to mention Star Trek, of course. He did many episodes, 3 or 4 episodes of Star Trek on Deep Space Nine and Next Generation.
Another fire alarm here. We haven't had one of those in a while. Okay.
So were you excited to enter the Star Trek world?
Yes. Yeah, sure. Of course. I mean, I'd watched it as a child and enjoyed it enormously. And I thought it was terrific. I can't remember which one I did first. I think it was Next Generation with Patrick Stewart and Gates McFadden. And the character was called Ronan. And I think he's referred to as there is another name for him.
He's like the love ghost or something, isn't he?
The love ghost, or there is a I can't remember the name. They've got all kinds of names, and it was kind of received 2 ways. It was either a turkey or people were, really, really happy with the final outcome. It's, I like that kind of balance of people either hate it or they love it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you had some great stuff in Star Wars or Star Trek. I know a lot of actors come on and they're all excited and they're literally by themselves in a booth with a green screen for an hour and then they're done.
Yeah.
They don't meet anybody. They don't. So you had some great scenes there.
Yeah, really wonderful. And Gates was such a great actress to work with. Really, really so giving and lovely. And of course, Patrick was lots of fun too. I mean, I remember walking on the set, and he came on, and he walked up to me. He's not very tall, but he stared right up into my face and did the whole staring contest thing with me. And I thought, well, this is fun. And I smiled at him and kept looking at him. I didn't shift my gaze at all. And he finally said, "You'll do," and said the shoulder, and I just laughed and I said, "Oh, give us a kiss then."
Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
But
what he was looking for was to see whether I would be a rival for the lady that he was actually attracted to, and I, quite happily would be a rival for the hand of Gates McFadden.
All the characters in that show always had that weird thing on their nose, like they were grinding nutmeg.
Yeah, I never understood that. I said, what is this, foreskin or something I've got between my eyes here? What is this thing? And I never did get an answer. They said, "Oh, it's just a thing. It doesn't do anything. It's just a thing." Yeah,
they use it to grind nutmeg, for their coffee.
Yeah, exactly. But,
no, it was a great thing for you.
No, I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. And of course, Deep Space Nine, the same thing. I loved the cast, a lot of the people in it. I never really clearly understood the transformation of the character, because the character of Shakar starts out as this rebel leader, almost fighting with his own people in a way. And again, a kind of a hero character, which was, I understood very, very well. And I understood what his motivations were, where to go with him. Then once the revolution was over, they transferred that character into being the prime minister. And they virtually castrated him by doing so. He had nowhere to go. And I no longer understood what that character was. I was simply there as a kind of paying homage to other characters with my role. And I, finally bowed out because there was nowhere to go with it for me.
Yeah, for sure.
At that point, but up until then, it was great. And of course, the cast was great. Nana Visitor, what a lovely lady to work with. I mean, she's really smart, really funny, and she's so accommodating, making you feel comfortable. And we got to be friends, and spent a little bit of time together. And she had an interest in art, and of course, the late Renee Aubergenois, whom I'd worked with before on Billy the Kid. was there, and he's another Wilford Brimley type who would have one story after another. Just great raconteur, and miss him. He was great.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we'll make it to the Star Trek con at some point. It keeps getting delayed, but I know the fans are always rabid for that show. It never goes away. It's incredible.
Yeah.
Well, the last time we saw you on screen was 2009 with a TV movie. The Good Times Are Killing Me. Well, I'm sure a lot of your fans would love to see you back on screen. I understand you're very busy with your artwork.
Yep.
Do you have any desire to return to acting?
Sure. If the role is right, I'll go. I'll do it. Sure. The role is right. If the script is right, all of that. Yeah, I'd be happy to go back and do something. Anytime.
Very cool.
Sure.
Well, your website's right above us, Duncan Regehr, artworks.com. You guys can check that out if you want to see anything to do with his art.
Yeah.
But I do want to talk a little bit about that for a minute or two. What do you enjoy most about painting, and what's the greatest success that you found as a painter?
Well, it's really a way of life. I've done it all my life, and it's an engagement that's it's there with you all the time. It's not something it's not a hobby. It's not a pastime for me. It's my life, and it's how I see life and envision. It's a way for me to explore and make discoveries, and I think that's what we are as human beings. Unless we're half asleep, it's that kind of draw, if you will. It's a calling to make discoveries, to learn about it, and certainly the art practice is one that makes those revelations to me and allows me to put it out there.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I guess when you do your exhibits, that's sort of how you feel when you go to a film premiere. You want to see how people react.
It can be a bit like that. Yeah, I had one recently in Vancouver at the Petley Jones Gallery, which just closed. But I mean, it goes on after, even though it's closed, the paintings are still there and they carry on. But we usually have some kind of gala opening, and of course we can't do that right now with COVID and what have you. Nonetheless, the show was certainly in terms of sales very successful. But I always count the success of the series or of the exhibit, the fact that I actually got it on there, actually made it happen. That seems to me to be a success. But in terms of people coming through the gallery, it's, that of course they couldn't. Very, very few people with masks would come. So.
Wow. Well, hopefully they weren't robbing it with the masks.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. That's great. I know they extended it. We talked about that, so that was great.
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
Well, before we go, I'm going to put you on the spot with this last question.
Uh-oh.
I ask it to everybody I talk to. So if you could pick any actor to be the lead in a film with you and any director to direct the film, who would you pick? And they have to be the caveats. They have to be people you've never worked with before. And people who are still alive.
Never worked with before and still alive.
I can think of a director right away that I think you'd be great with. But
okay, tell me.
I would say who you come up with.
There are so many. I mean, it can't be somebody that I worked with before, though, right?
No,
that's too bad. Have to come up with somebody new. I think I'd like to work with Meryl Streep, somebody like Meryl Streep or Cate Blanchett as female, opposite female. Yeah. Who else would I like to work with? I like Jude Law very much these days, and John Malkovich I like very much. Wonderful actors. But directors. Oh, I think it's not fashionable, maybe, but Roman Polanski, I'd like to work with.
Yeah, no, he's He's a visionary, that's for sure.
That's why I like him a lot. But and it's a shame that he can't, come to our countries.
Yeah. Well, my pick, I can see you being a great cast with David Lynch. Yeah, I can see you fitting in well in his universe.
Oh yeah, David. Yeah, it would be good. Yeah, sure. Very different. Yeah.
Well, we'll put that out there in the universe.
There you go. Yes. Another artist. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm just going to skim through for a second, see if there's any viewer questions that we missed. We have this one here, Francie. I saw your work at the gallery and the website, and I loved it all.
Great.
Very cool. And I think she might have a one-on-one Zoom coming up.
Okay.
Jim is asking, do you have any tips for young beginning artists?
As a painter?
That's what I'm guessing, yeah.
Painter or sculptor or
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah. Stay true to your vision. Don't get sidetracked by doing things that you think are just going to make you money or make you famous. Stick with your vision.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And the blue and the gray playing the Confederate. That was an early credit for you, wasn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Let's see if we have anything else here. Did Victoria ever find out that Zorro was Diego?
Maybe.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, we'll never know. She might have thought it was Andre the Giant.
Yeah.
He's the only other tall guy.
Yeah.
Asking, did you do any paintings with the Zorro series that he was filmed? Doing.
Is it true he did the poems? I did some poetry for the show. Or Philip Taylor and Bob McCullough incorporated some of the poems that I'd written into the show, and I did do some of the painting, in action sort of thing for the show.
Right.
Yeah.
Was it your idea to give Charles and V an English accent, or was it the producers?
I think it was kind of a given that I would have that sort of mid-Atlantic, what we called a mid-Atlantic kind of accent for Charles. So it could be sort of construed as being a British accent. Yeah.
Right.
Given an understanding.
And last question here. Mary is asking, out of all the characters you have played, which one comes closest to yourself? Please don't say a little of you as in each character. She's asked that before.
Yeah. Closest to me. Probably Zorro. Yeah. I would think.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, considering that he has 3 personalities, as I pointed out earlier. Yeah, that works for me.
There you go. What are some of Duncan's favorite roles? We sort of talked about that one. Any book recommendations we should be reading?
Well, the kind of reading I do isn't. Well, I like Stephen Greenblatt's The Swerve right now, which is it's nonfiction. But yeah, that's what I'm reading right now. I think it's very good.
Right. Well, that's going to do it for this one, Duncan. It's always fun chatting with you, and I enjoyed getting to know a little more about you. Any closing comments?
You want another fire alarm? Hey, it doesn't come any more exciting than this. I could have conjured up the fire myself, but there you go. So, we had a fiery conversation there.
We did.
Yeah.
There's no reason to be alarmed.
Oh God.
Or maybe you were really cursing all those times, and it was just people. All right. Well, before we start losing viewers, I better stop with the jokes. But
okay. Yeah.
We are going to wrap this one, and and I look forward to the days when we can hang out in person and go back to cons and go back to life. So thanks so much, Duncan, and we'll see you in a little bit in the Zoom session.
You bet.
You can just close out of this, and we'll see you shortly.
Cheers.
Thanks a lot. Well, thanks so much to everyone who watched us live. we could have talked for hours, and sorry if we didn't get to your question. We try to get as many of them as possible in there. And we are running a little bit delayed on the one-on-one chats because of the fire alarm. I pushed things back a little bit, but luckily it was a false alarm, so no worries there. If you did purchase a one-on-one Zoom with Duncan, you can go ahead and click that link, and we'll still do it in the same order. It'll just be 10 or 15 minutes delayed. And I hope you can join us tomorrow night. We've got another event coming up at 4 p.m. with Phil Fondacaro, who's the star of Willow and Troll. And then Sunday, William B. Davis is at 4 p.m., the star of The X-Files, with many more exciting events to come. So thanks so much to everyone who watched again, and I hope everyone has a great weekend and hope you come back soon. Thanks a lot.